Hello and welcome back to Rev Real Estate School. I'm your host, Michael Montgomery, and today what we're talking about are predictions for 2023 as a real estate agent. Let's jump in. Number one, agent drop-off isn't nearly as high as predicted. So yes, right now there is a lot of talk about, with markets softening, real estate agents are just going to burn their licenses and leave the industry. Well, I have been through hot markets and I've been through extremely slow markets. And rarely during those slow markets do we see a mass exodus of real estate agents. Yes, we do see a drop. And sometimes though, we just see a stagnation. We just don't see the growth that we've seen previously. So we have agents that may be retiring out of the industry and we don't necessarily have the same number of agents coming in. So we kind of see this stagnation. And that's what I think we're going to see. Now, why is this important? Because I hear a lot of real estate agents talking about the fact that agents are going to leave the industry. And by all these agents leaving the industry, that just means there's going to be more business for all of us. Now, this is a dangerous assumption because it causes us to just sit back on our heels and think, okay, I'm just going to wait for all these agents to leave. And then all these consumers are going to start calling me. And that causes us to be lazy. So don't be lazy. And I guess I shouldn't say no that because theoretically, I guess it could, but I have just been through markets like this before and we don't see this just mass leaving of real estate agents. So instead, ensure that we are improving our skill set, operating with the assumption that the same number of agents that is with us at the start of 23 will be with us at the end of 23. Prediction number 2, customer service will reign supreme. Now, what do I mean by this? Well, as we're moving into slower markets, we are going to have longer time on market. We are going to have to take care of our clients. We are going to have to provide a higher level of service, having more challenging conversations, and ensuring they're well taken care of throughout the process, both on the buying and selling side. Buyers are going to take longer, listings are going to take longer, so we have to provide a high level of service throughout the transaction. Also, we'll see an increase in expired listings and probably a decrease in for sale by owners. So traditionally, when markets get soft, people are a little bit more hesitant to go out and represent themselves. Because of both of these concepts as well, these people, so we have people that are expiring, they're going to be looking for an agent who's going to provide a high level of service. And same thing with these people that would have gone for sale by owner, they're going to choose an agent very likely based on level of service. Prediction number 3 is in the social media space. And we've already started to see this, but it is the death of just general still images on Instagram. And it's the rise of Reddit. So I think the still images, there's not necessarily anything wrong. If this is truly your means of going out there and creating content, continue to do it. But I think that we may start to see that shift. And if we can create still images, yet turn those into reels or turn those into some type of video that's a little bit more interactive, we'll probably end up getting a lot more interaction with it. And just the concept of just posting a still image, I think that is going to go by the wayside. So we should think about how we can creatively put together images if that is our strategy. And then the next one is this rise of Reddit. So how many times have you typed something into Google and then just finished it off with Reddit because you want to see what other people are commenting on something? Reddit, I think, is this, I don't even really call it a social media network. It's more now turning into a search engine, kind of similar to Quora in so many ways, where we're kind of searching different topics that are of interest to us and answering Q&A. And I've actually gotten leads from Reddit from one client who posted my name as an agent who people should reach out to, which then led to leads. So I think that there is something there. I don't actually know the lead generation strategy through Reddit as of yet. I know you can advertise, which is probably something that I'm going to explore in 2023, but it is definitely a tool to watch. Next, we have the institutional investors start to buy like crazy towards the end of 2023. Institutional investors with large amounts of capital that may be a little bit more insulated from rising interest rates compared to the everyday consumer. So if we start to see prices slide, you may start to see these institutional investors start to scoop up product, especially if we see the forced seller. So the forced seller who has to refinance or has to do something, and what they realize is that now their payments are so high, they're not able to afford their house, or maybe they lose their job, whatever that might be. This forced seller who has to sell, these institutional investors could be gobbling up some of that inventory. So what would that mean for us? Well, that could mean that in some of our areas, prices may not drop too much, although we are going to talk about price adjustments here coming up. And it could also mean that these institutional investors, potentially, if we're able to get in the door with some of them, potentially there's an opportunity for us to help represent them. Let's talk about now prices and sales. And so I know I just said that institutional investors will be buying up some inventory, and I don't think that that is going to have the impact, though, that we may think. So what do I mean by this? I mean that a lot of sources are saying that sales may drop by 5 to 8 or 9%. I think we have to be more pessimistic than this. I would say it's more like 11, 12, 13, 14%, more so than the years before. Now, why do I say this? If we're looking at these interest rates, it's just going to limit buyers. And buyers, when there is this limitation in their mind, then there just tends to be this feedback loop. So if buyer doesn't want to buy because they are concerned about prices dropping, then in theory, prices could end up dropping because these buyers aren't buying, because it's almost like a self-fulfilling prophecy. They're not buying, and so sellers are forced to reduce. So the fact that the buyers think prices are going to come down actually drives prices down. And so that then also moves over to the prices side, where a lot of sources are saying we're not going to actually see a drop in prices in 2023. Actually, a lot of sources are zero. Some sources even say the prices are going to increase, but I just think that, again, we have to think a little bit more pessimistically about the market, and almost a little bit more, it's not even just pessimistic, it's more just being a little bit more safe, giving ourselves a little more margin of safety, that if sales decrease by that amount, we just have to take into consideration that prices are going to come down too. So 2, 3, 4% as far as price decreases, I think is extremely, extremely likely across the country as a whole. Now, that's not just to say across the country is going to be the same for every single center. Some centers may end up seeing just a stagnation in prices. Others will see significant drops. So keeping that in mind, that again, real estate is hyper-local, but I would say that based on what we're seeing from NAR and what their perspectives are, I think we're going to see more of a sales slowdown than they're predicting. I think they're predicting about 7% drop, and they're predicting a 0% change in prices. And I think we're going to see more decrease in prices than 0%, and we're going to see more decreases in sales than 7%. Next, we may see some brokers get into some tricky situations. So we may see some mergers and acquisitions. We may see some sales. We may see some brokers go under. Realistically, brokers are going to make the majority of their income based on the number of transactions, not on prices. So based on the number of sales that occur, that tends to have an impact on the broker's bottom line, or the biggest impact. And the other piece that tends to be one of the more expensive things is office space. So if their office space isn't getting cheaper, or their other expenses aren't getting cheaper, and they're not actually going to be pulling in the revenue, well, we could be in a tricky situation. So watch brokers, especially potentially brokerages that took on a lot of leverage over the past 2 years, maybe took up a whole ton of office space, maybe made really big pushes in certain ways that can be expensive, technology, things like that. Because yes, maybe those things will draw more agents to them, but in fact, they can also be a pretty big liability if they don't end up panning out the way they were expecting 2023 to be. So just watch that in 2023. I'm sure we'll see some mergers and acquisitions, and we could also see some service changes, different things that they're trying to offer the consumer and different things they're trying to offer the agent, which in fact is their consumer in many ways. And finally, the technology companies. So we'll probably end up seeing more of a slowdown in a lot of the technology companies. They're really getting hit by a double whammy because they're getting the softening of the real estate markets, but then they're also getting this softening of the fact that money is expensive now and investors are starting to tighten their wallets. So they're not just getting that inflow of cash, and then their asset that they're working with, which tends to be real estate, is also on the decline. But don't underestimate them, and don't underestimate the service. So for example, when we are looking at an iBuying service, that can be very beneficial to somebody in a slow market. If somebody just is very concerned about coming to market or listing for 6 months, doesn't know what they're going to get, unsure, iBuyer becomes a very compelling offering. But some of them that maybe took on a little bit too much, we could see them delisted. So some of the public companies, we could see some delisted. We could even see some go under. But that being said, there's a lot of smart people behind these organizations, and we could also very likely see service model changes. So those are your predictions for 2023. You can reach us anytime at revrealestateschool.com, or I'm on Instagram at the.michael.montgomery. Thanks again, and we'll see you in the next lesson.